Joining us now by Zoom chat is Tony Foy, Executive Director of NET Ministries in Ireland. Good morning to you, Tony.
Good morning, Joe. Pleased to meet you.
Yeah, praise be to God. It's good to meet you. Thank you for your time today. So many of us here in the West, in America in particular, look to Ireland, Catholic Ireland, as sort of the proverbial canary in the mine for the Catholic world. And we're keenly interested on how the faith fares there because we see that as a spoiler alert for what would come for the rest of us. And, I was looking at some of the statistics that I was trying to find on Catholic Ireland, and I didn't find anything more recent than I think it was 2016, 2017. So I don't know what they are at the moment, but it seems like the Catholic faith is down into the 70s as far as percentage for people who identify as Catholics there. I find that very interesting. That's down like 10 points in that census. But yet we saw an article recently that said there were more people who identify as Catholic in Northern Ireland than Protestants. I mean, what is going on in Ireland? What is the state of the church there, Tony Foy?
Yes, Joe, you've asked a lot of questions there, so I'll try and break it down as best I can, okay? So you're talking about the 2016 faith practice statistics, and we don't have anything more up to date than then, but if it was bad then, it's a lot worse now. And we have two different parts of Ireland, one which is governed by the UK and one which is governed by the Republic of Ireland government. And things are a lot worse in the Republic of Ireland in terms of faith. And that's both in terms of people who have a belief in God and would identify as Catholic and those who then practice. So religious practice is really the key for what we would look at. And in 2016-17, that was around 30% in the south and in the north around 50%.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty depressing.
It's worse than that now.
That's very depressing.
It's worse than that now. And so it's better. I don't think you have to worry in the States, okay? And I actually think you've taken a different tack in the United States, and there's a different attitude when it comes to the faith there. So traditionally, people in the United States, myself and my wife lived there in Texas, and our experience of the faith was it was fairly weak when we were there in the early 1990s. And we came back to Ireland so that we could raise our kids in a place where we thought our kids would grow up in the faith. Now, how wrong we were in a sense. Now, we didn't know at that stage that we would be doing what we're doing now, which is running a Catholic mission, NET Ministries, which is international, but we run the Irish division of that. And because of that, our kids have faith. But that what we didn't know at the time that's what we would be doing. But the church in America took a very proactive stance to the secular onslaught, in that the laity were educated. There was a root and branch, from what I see anyway. There was a root and branch approach to the seminaries, where the corrupt seminaries were basically cleaned house. And it was, we have a problem, let's deal with it in typical American fashion. And that's much to be applauded. In the Irish context, and I'm no expert on the European situation, nor am I in the Irish, but I'll give you my opinion anyway. And it is we were facing the problem, and we were like a deer in the headlights as an institutional church. We didn't seem to know what to do with it. And with the result that we pretty much did very, very little. And then the abuse scandals came, and whatever voice the hierarchical church had in Ireland, they were emasculated. We were emasculated as a hierarchical church, and so the proclamation of the gospel became muted because of that.
It looks like Ireland, and I say you, I don't mean you, I mean Ireland, the church in Ireland has lost the current generation for sure. 66% of Irish voters said yes to the abortion on demand that came, I think it was that 2018, if I'm not
2018.
Yeah. So 66% of Irish voters voted in favor of that. All three of your political parties used to be pro-life, they're now all in favor of abortion and actually actively criticize pro-life views, it seems. That's a very staggering data point, I would argue, for the future of Ireland.
Yeah, I would agree. It's more nuanced than that, in that we were brainwashed up to the election, and we didn't have an alter. Like, you have different news sources in the United States. You have the left and you have the right, and one is equally seen as equally valid. Whereas here, it's all left leaning, and so there was no counterbalance to the woke onslaught, and that people were brainwashed into believing that abortion was healthcare. And there was a case of a dentist who died on while delivering a child, and the media used that. Her name was Savina Halappanavar, and it was a terrible tragedy. It was awful what actually happened, but she died of sepsis, and there were several actual investigations into her death, and they all concluded that she died of sepsis. But the media continued to say that she died because abortion was not available. And 2 weeks before the referendum, she was from India originally. The people who wanted to bring abortion into the country contacted her family and got her family in India to do basically a call out to the Irish people to say, you've got to legalize abortion. It was mass propaganda at its worst. So, while a third of the people voted against, I would say apart from that, there would have been more people who would have voted against. It may have still gone the way of legalizing abortion, but it was very nuanced. And again, the media was owned by the pro-abortion side.
Yeah,
and it's still owned.
Yeah, I had a friend who works for an organization that does marketing for Catholic organizations, and they were hired by the pro-life side there in Ireland to help get the word out and the truth out about abortion. Well, the opposing side discovered that their organization was an American-based organization, and they were tossed out of the country for foreign interference in the election, even though they were just hired by the local organization. It seems rather one-sided for sure. But nonetheless, we're about a minute from a break right now, so I would say that if it's at all possible to turn the tide there, then Catholic Ireland should be the ones to be able to not have to wait 50 years to overturn an abortion law like America has. Do you think that's possible to turn it over quickly?
Yeah, I actually think the overturning of Roe v. Wade has come at a very key moment for the Irish situation, because it was, we almost gave up hope, in our country, and the fact that you guys have been able to overturn it has given us hope that we can do the same. Until we begin to own the media, or at least a portion of the media, I think we're on an uphill struggle. I would love to see, if somebody's interested out there in listening to this show who has the capability of actually getting behind a media source in Ireland that will actually provide an alternative media to the Irish people. It has become so woke.
Hold that thought. Hold it. We'll pick up right there. I'm always fascinated with the state of Ireland. It never ceases to amaze me. Good morning and welcome back.
With a name like yours, I can understand why, Joe.
Yeah, praise be to God. Yeah, if I wish my son was here, he'd twist your ear for 3 hours on the history of the McLeans. It would be a fun conversation. But nonetheless, before the break, we're talking about media in Ireland and the lack of a balanced approach, or having access to information other than what is state approved. And it's interesting because in one of the earlier segments of this show, I talked about how the UN has admitted to coordinating with, Alphabet company, Google, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, all of them, to control the data that people get to consume. They don't get to just see information and process it. They get what is the government-approved information, which means we live in difficult times for a lot of these faithful, because, and here's the follow-up to that I wanted to bring up. It seems to me, from the outside looking in, that the people in Ireland are really becoming atheists. It's not as though they're like going off to become Protestants or Muslims or some other thing. They're really just becoming agnostic and into atheism, which means they're apathetic and probably don't care all that much about truth or right and wrong. How do you see it, Tony Foy?
Yeah, I would agree with you, Joe. I would go one further and I would say actually we're becoming more than atheists, we're becoming pagans. We're
Yikes.
actually worshiping at the temple of other gods, and they're not good gods, you know, gods of our own making, just the same way as the golden calf, you know, and radical secularism. We're ideologically captured in a sense, and we can't see it. We're so deep into it, and we don't have, you know, that's why Jordan Peterson is doing such a great and important job, because he's able to actually reach into the culture and actually say, hang on, guys, this doesn't make sense. And people are saying, they're waking up and saying, okay, tell us why, you know, tell us why. And he's able to articulate that in a very reasoned way. And it's great that his philosophy is actually in line with what the church actually teaches. You know, that he's all the things, you know, the way that he's telling us to live our lives is in line with how the church is telling us to live our lives. And I suppose the only thing is he hasn't yet made a personal commitment to follow Jesus Christ as his Lord, and that's the missing link. But the second that he does that, he's probably lost his credibility for the audience that we're trying to reach here. In that it becomes a religious argument then that's backed up by philosophy, rather than a philosophical argument that will lead to religion.
Mr. Foy, Rudy Carlos here, and you know, I'm wondering, I want to ask you about NET Ministries. So we've set up a picture here, it's kind of a bleak picture of the future of Ireland, and really, this is not just Ireland; it's happening all over the world. But I'm wondering, what is in your experience working at NET Ministries with the youth? What is the one thing that you've seen that is a challenge to them that has led them away from the church, and how have you addressed that through your ministry?
Yeah. So the first question, what has led them away from the church? The young people at this stage are a generation removed from the church. It's people my age who grew up in faith who just walked away, and religious practice dissipated. And most of my generation, I would say 95% of my generation, I'm in my 50s now, no longer practice. And the figures that demonstrate the high practice at 30%, they're people in their 70s and 80s who are still going, who are still faithful. Okay.
Wow.
So that on to the next question. What is bringing them back? It's what we do is so small, okay, in the grand scheme of things, and we're not interested in changing the politics of Ireland. We are interested in one soul at a time. And
Amen.
What we do is we work with the beautiful priests, and we work with them in the schools and parishes in which they work, and we essentially disciple young people in their own parish. So young people who may go to church because their parents are still faithful, will work with them to try and help their faith. And those who don't have any faith at all, have had no faith experience, who may be going to what is in effect a Catholic school in inverted commas, because we have access to the Catholic schools, we invite young people from that environment into youth groups, and we'll disciple them through the course of a year or 2 or 3 years, however long we're in a parish setting. And that's what we're doing. We're so small that it's, but yet look at how the church started. It started with 12, you know, and we're a lighthouse because of what we do to the church in Ireland. We're producing massive fruit. The vocations to the priesthood and religious life here are incredible out of the mission. And it's even though the majority of our missionaries are from outside of Ireland, the majority of the vocations to the priesthood and religious life, not to mention the marriages, but the majority of the vocations to the priesthood and religious life are in the church in Ireland. And it's like God is about something. We're so small. I'm not saying we're humble. We are obviously humble, but realistically, we're really, really small. But yet, as vocations tank, and I mean really tank, we have in total in the National Seminary, we have in the 20s at all stages of priestly formation.
Wow.
Around 20 for the whole country for diocesan priesthood. NET Ireland has 17.
Oh, wow.
Priesthood and religious life. Okay. Now, that's not for me to boast about what we're doing. We're as astounded by this as anybody. We're just doing the Catholic thing. We're faithful to the magisterium. We're actually proclaiming the gospel. So we're telling people about Jesus. We're telling young people in a way that they can actually understand. And our approach is very much to the culture, but we're not diluting what we're about at all. And God is blessing what we're doing in a way that we as a staff are standing back and saying, this is amazing. Thank you, God. We're just going to keep walking behind you, and thank you for what you're doing, because we couldn't do what you're doing.
So what exactly does NET Ministries in Ireland do? I have a lot of friends in America who were in NET Ministries US, and they mostly were doing youth ministry. They were doing retreats, that kind of thing, coming in and hosting retreats at different parishes. And I had thought about joining NET Ministries in the US when I was out of high school. And the idea, though, was simply that, there's most of the people you were preaching to or you were missioning to were people who were already coming to church. So what exactly does NET Ministries in Ireland do that might be different, or maybe it just is
more effective?
Well, I would say NET USA is very effective as well. So that's it's not that we're any more effective than NET USA. It's incredibly effective and incredibly fruitful in the USA, as is NET in the other countries that we are. But in terms of why is NET so effective in Ireland, we have adapted to the Irish culture in that we have young people in Ireland are very, very jaded. They have never been introduced to what the church actually teaches or what the church actually represents. So when they hear a young person saying that they believe in Jesus, and they're not weird, they're actually normal, and they might even be cool, and they might be into sports, and they might just do the normal things, but yet they have this faith that gives them something that the young person themselves doesn't actually have. That's what impacts the young people in Ireland. And we've recognized in Ireland particularly that we're the most fruit is coming from our parish team. So where we're actually stay in the parish for at least a year, and hopefully longer than that, we disciple the young people on an ongoing basis. So every missionary that comes to Ireland, they're given when they go to a parish, they're given 2 young people that they're to disciple for the year, and that is they pray for them, they look out for them, they meet with them, and they essentially they hang out with them, to the point where they'll eventually ask them, do you want to put Jesus and the church in the center of your life? And I suppose that's the thing. It's a longer term thing. And we also recognize that we're much, much smaller.
Yeah.
And we're up against it in the context of the church, in terms of the population and the way the culture is here and all the rest. So we're just doing the thing. We're faithful to what God is asking us to do, and He is blessing it.
Praise be to God. Just a couple of minutes left with Tony Foy here. Okay, that's the youth. What about our generation? We're close to the same vintage here. What about this generation? Is there an organization, or is there a group? Is there a movement among, especially as I'm so fond of men's ministry? Is there a men's movement there to recapture, re-evangelize Catholic Ireland?
There's a thing. Yes, there's lots of really great green shoots. There's a rosary rally, so men are coming to say the rosary in different cities all around Ireland, and it's absolutely amazing that men are coming out. They're kneeling down. It's an awkward thing to do. The weather's not great here, but we're choosing to kneel down in front of the main street in whatever city it is, and say, "Yeah, I'm going to look a bit foolish for the sake of the gospel. I'm going to kneel down at a time when we don't bow to anybody. And I'm going to kneel because God is God and I am not." And there's that. And there's so many other things. For example, in our own small way, something I'm organizing with a friend of mine, we're organizing a philosophy night this coming Friday night in Ballybofey in Donegal, where we're from. And the response to that has been incredible, unbelievable. And it's because the culture doesn't make sense, people want to make sense of it. And if wherever that sense comes from, if it's truth, it will ring out. And the church has the deposit of faith. We have the truth. And they want us to come at things, I think, from a philosophical perspective. And they may get the religious argument, but the response from men, this is a men-only night this Friday night, the response from men has been incredible. So there's lots of green shoots, lots of really good things happening. They're small at this stage, but please pray for Ireland. We need all the prayers of the faithful American Catholics to pray for Ireland, for this beautiful country.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish we had more time. We're just about out of time at this point. I also wanted to bring up, we saw a video that resurfaced recently of a heavy criticism by a Catholic priest there for traditionally minded young priests. I mean, good grief. Why would you discard something so beautiful, so amazing that would have such a transformative effect on the people of Ireland? We'll have to just pray. Tony Foy, Executive Director, NET Ministries, God bless you. Thank you for your time today and your insight into this incredible topic.
Thanks, Joe.
God bless you. That's going to do it for hour number 1. If you can join us in the second hour, Brent Haynes is going to be our guest. We're going to be talking about the U.S. Supreme Court and their session, some of the cases they're tackling, plus the game show, prizes, and more. Go to grnonline.com.